Imagine going to a website or walking into a retail store and everything you see is only $1. Impossible, right? Well, you might think so. But Dollar Tree will prove you wrong. Dollar Tree is the nation's #1 destination for value shopping. All of their stores are well lit and crammed with all kinds of hidden treasures. Dollar Tree offers a plethora of merchandise that includes many national and regionally trusted brands. It doesn't matter if you're looking for housewares, dinnerware, candy, snacks, stationery, or holiday needs. You're going to find it at Dollar Tree. You can shop at your hometown store or shop online for exclusive offers, manufacturer closeouts, watch videos, and join their Value Seekers Club. On top of all that, you can have your order shipped for free directly to your local store. To visit DollarTree.com, click on the link in the show notes to let them know we sent you. Doing so helps keep our podcast going. Dollar Tree, where everything is only $1. Hey everyone, welcome to Everyone Has a Story. I am your host, Nate Wade, coming to you. And I said it again. Why do I always say coming to you? I have no idea. I guess it's probably just because it's become habit at this point in time, and so I just say it. I don't know why. I'm going to try my hardest not to say that anymore, okay? We've got Jed Jerchenko on the show today. Fantastic conversation I had with him. He's an author, he's a speaker, he does coaching. So if you want to learn more about being a writer, Jed's your guy. If you want to know about couples counseling, things like that, Jed's your guy. He's got some fantastic books out there, and I highly recommend you check them out. He'll talk a little bit about that in the conversation we have. It is Easter weekend. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Easter. How do you celebrate it? Do you guys go have Easter egg hunts? Do you make a ham? What do you do? Maybe cook a lamb? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Some people do that for Easter. What do you do for Easter? You get a brand new dress, go to church on Sundays. What do you do? I mean, I would love to know. Just why don't you talk to me on Twitter or Facebook and let me know. You can find me at Everybody's Got a Story on Facebook. You can find me at K-Nate Radio on Twitter and just shoot me a text. Say, hey, this is what I do for Easter, or Easter's stupid, or whatever. As you probably know, or many of you know, I am a Christian, and so therefore this is the holiest weekend of them all for us. We celebrated going in from last week into Palm Sunday. That's the victorious ride of Jesus into Jerusalem, where he was sitting on the back of a donkey and all the people are waving palm branches at him and saying, hail to the king, this is the king, Hosanna in the highest, they say. And then just a couple of days later, they end up crucifying. It's kind of a sad and weird, scary story, isn't it? So it's a holy week for Christians, and it's actually a holy week for Jews as well, because they celebrate Passover during this time as well, which is, if you don't know, is celebrating the time when they believe that the angel of death passes over them during the plagues and stuff that were given to Egypt back in Moses' day. And so this is a celebration of Passover. So it's a deeply, deeply religious time for both Christians and Jews. Good Friday is when Jesus was crucified on the cross. And of course, Easter Sunday is when we believe that Jesus was resurrected from the dead, and now he has conquered death and sin, and we can have eternal life because of what Jesus did for us on the cross. Hallelujah. Awesome. Oh, it's so good. I just got back from recording, which is kind of weird because this year is going to be a little different for a lot of people because they will not be able to go to church. So much for those Easter and Christmas Christians. I mean, you can still watch it on Facebook, right? So we recorded our service, and tomorrow morning, of course, it'll be on Facebook or YouTube. You can definitely tune in if you'd like. You can find it at ShilohFoursquare.org, I believe is what it's called, is the website. Otherwise, that's in Idaho Falls, Idaho. So if you want to find a great service, there's plenty of services online right now. I mean, every church has pretty much been relegated to having to do their services online. So if you go to church, or if you even remotely believe in God, tomorrow morning is a great time to turn on Facebook or go to YouTube and find a good church service to be a part of, okay? All right, enough of that. Hey, I want to talk, you know what we're going to do? Everyone Has a Story is going to try something a little different. So starting this week, I am not only going to be posting a podcast via the normal ways that I normally do that, but I'm also going to start posting these podcasts to YouTube. So If you have YouTube, you can find it. It is, I believe it's Everyone Has a Story on YouTube. I will definitely make sure I have a link in the show notes. So if you want to actually watch, and this one is actually a video conversation that we recorded, so there will actually be video involved. Sometimes it might just be a slideshow with the audio, and if you would prefer to watch it on YouTube, you can do that. But this week we actually did record video, so you'll be able to see Jed and me talking and having a great conversation, as I said. I hope you're making it through this crazy time, and we're almost done, I hope, with the shelter in place, the quarantine. I know our state is scheduled to have ours lifted here this week on April 15th, tax day, I guess. Of course, I guess they've extended the taxes out. So hopefully that is the case and everybody can get back to work. And I hope you guys are staying safe, you're staying healthy, and I hope you're not suffering too bad financially. Please make sure that you do everything you can to help yourself out as far as that's concerned. If you are laid off, get some unemployment, go to churches, see if they can help you, those kind of things. Maybe you can get some help, and I am praying for you all. And without any further ado, let's get into the conversation with Jed Jerchenko.
Welcome to my final opinion.
No, it's my vinyl opinion.
Oh, sorry, my vinyl opinion. Join me every Friday night at midnight for the Record of the Week review and my MVO 5-star rating. Get a personal look at the history of the artist and the original members of the band every Friday night at midnight on
My vinyl opinion.
So my name's Jed. I grew up in sunny San Diego. I'm actually living in snowy Minnesota right now, which fortunately is becoming less snowy by the day. I am more than ready for spring to hit.
Yeah.
But my background, I've worked as a children's pastor, marriage and family therapist, a writing coach, and a writer.
Okay. So you grew up in San Diego, you say?
Yeah, so San Diego County was home.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa actually moved from Michigan to San Diego when just shortly after my dad was born.
Okay.
And bought a house right on the beach.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, a whole lot of land. And then I guess at that time there was this idea going around that beach air would get you sick. So my dad caught a couple of colds, and grandma says, nope, we got to get away from the beach. So they moved inland to this little town called Lemon Grove.
Okay.
And to this day, I wish I could get like a note in time back to my grandpa and be like, dude, grandpa, keep the beach house.
Right? Yeah, no kidding. Even if you had like 10 square foot of that property, it would probably set you for life.
Oh, and it's amazing to look back just 100 years, like at some of our favorite restaurants in San Diego and La Jolla, and see some of those pictures up on the wall. Mm-hmm. We're like, there was nothing out there. And of course, now it's packed.
Yeah. My wife and I, we went to San Diego on vacation a couple of years ago for the first time ever. I'd been there, and man, I totally dig that town. I mean, it's about 3 million people or so. Is that right? Or is it more?
It's got to be at least 3 million. It feels like 3 million.
It felt really compact to me. I mean, as far as the square miles, it seemed like it was really tight, and I kind of liked that. It didn't feel like it was so spread out like Los Angeles does. Los Angeles just seems like it goes on forever, but it didn't feel that way in San Diego, at least to me. But
all right, so I've got to know, did you have a favorite spot or favorite getaway while you were there?
Oh, well, we did all the tourist things, but we stayed on like there's a little, I can't remember, is it La Jolla or something like that? There's a little peninsula where like you cross where SeaWorld is, and we stayed in a resort right there, and that beach right there was really awesome. It wasn't very crowded. They have like a little amusement park on it. It wasn't very crowded. That was fun. And then going across the bridge, that I don't know what that peninsula is called. I can't remember.
Oh, Coronado.
Yeah, Coronado was freaking amazing. Oh, yeah. Loved it over there. Heck yeah. That place was amazing. Yeah.
And then one of my favorite places in the world.
Oh, it was so fun there. And then we drove down to visit that state park where the Spanish explorer, I guess supposedly had discovered that land down there. I can't remember any of the names now, but yeah, we really had a lot of fun. We visited the aircraft carrier that you can go on and that kind of stuff. So it was fun.
Yeah, you had it, the Midway.
The Midway, yes, yeah. It was a lot of fun, and I'd love to get back. That place, I've been to Los Angeles a bunch of times, but I loved San Diego so much more than Los Angeles any day of the week. It was a lot of fun.
San Diego's gorgeous, and there's a ton that I miss about it.
Yeah.
But it's funny, every time I fly back home, like, I remember why we moved, because it seems like twice as crowded as when we left.
Sure.
And so it is just exploding out there.
Yeah. So this
has been a great thing for us.
Right. So did you grow up in a religious household then, or what happened?
I did. So my dad was a youth pastor when I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally grew up in the church. And when I say grew up in the church, like, I learned to walk in the main sanctuary.
Sure.
I was the youth pastor's kid who got passed around from one teenager to the next to the next.
Yeah.
So faith was always a really important part of my life.
Okay. So because of that, so when you got through with high school, did you go to school then to be a youth pastor, or what happened?
Yeah, I did. So I went to high school, graduated, went to seminary, got a master's of divinity.
Okay. What school did you go to?
So Southern California Seminary.
Okay.
Yep. Tiny school, but great teaching. Loved it. Learned a ton. And of course, like most college students, got out, graduated, and thought I knew everything. I was like, all right, I'm a Bible student. I know everything about everything. I'm set, good to go.
Right.
100% enthusiastic, and didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
One huge thing that I missed in both growing up and in seminary was this whole idea of doing relationships well. So I grew up when just the whole purity movement was huge.
Yes.
And there's a lot of good things that came out of that movement.
Right.
But one of the things that I think they missed was this whole idea of knowing how to do a healthy relationship.
Sure.
I think at that time there was this idea that, man, relationships are dangerous. Relationships are scary. If you're a teenager and you date, it's going to lead to sex.
Yeah.
And your life's just going to be a disaster.
Right.
So I was homeschooled the last couple of years of high school. And this book came out called I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And the whole theme of that book was, man, dating's going to take you down the ledge. And if the ledge is here, don't stand 10 feet back. Get as far away as you can.
Yeah.
So kind of the circles that I ran in, people were making pledges of, my first kiss is going to be on my wedding day.
Right.
We're not going to date. We're just going to court. And the interesting thing is by the time I got out of high school, I had no idea how to do romantic relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we would do a high school formal. And I remember asking one girl to sit next to me. And she's like, yeah, I'll sit next to you. And apparently years later, she told me, like, Jed, I'm so sorry. I wanted to sit next to you that night. But I got like accosted by 3 other people in the washroom who was like, we don't do that here.
Really?
I was like, no way. Seriously?
Wow.
She's turning red and blushing. And I'm like, wow, this was that. I had no idea it was that intense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned before we started recording that I was working at a Christian bookstore, and that's when those books started to come out with Joshua Harris and some of the others. And I was old enough where I kind of missed that whole. I was in my early 20s by that point in time, so I kind of missed that whole. Really, I mean, when I was in youth group, I got saved in a youth group when I was a teenager. And so then it was the True Love Waits is what it was called. Then it was Josh McDowell, and he was really pushing it, the Why Wait kind of thing. So it really kind of started in that late 80s, early 90s time frame, but it really picked up steam right around 1995, 96, and that mid 90s type of a frame. And I saw it from the outside again, since I was kind of, out of that scene by that point. And like you said, there is some positive things that come of it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being pure, and saving yourself for marriage and that kind of stuff. But the extreme that some of the purity movement went to is as you said, it was hurtful, and it was really hard to maneuver around.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. I've got six daughters, so I'm all for purity. But looking back, I'm also realizing, man, during those high school years, I want my daughters to date.
Yeah.
Now I'll be honest. This is hard to say. It's hard to say on a recorded podcast. I'm like, okay, I can't believe I'm saying this live and it's recorded. And I'm sure, they're going to hit 16 and hunt down this episode and be like, hey, Dad, listen to what you said right here. But here's the truth. In relationships, especially when you're learning and you're in high school, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that's the best time to make mistakes is when you're still living at home under mom and dad's roof. Mm-hmm. As hard as this is to say, if my girls want to date somebody who maybe I don't agree with 100% or who I think, man, that's going to be a disaster. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have them go through that disaster at 16 than 21, 25, or for me, it was 28.
Okay.
And so I didn't know how to date.
Yeah.
Thought I knew a lot because I had gone to seminary, read the book, said we're both believers. We've got this. And then turned into a complete train wreck. And my world just turned upside down and crumbled.
Okay.
And the truth is I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so that was this whole catalyst for going back to school a second time, the same school, which interestingly enough only offered 2 degrees. There's a degree in biblical studies and one in counseling and psychology. And I was like, well, that's exactly what I need because I want to figure out what I missed.
Yeah.
What was going on with me that there was stuff in our relationship that I should have recognized early on, and I just didn't see it. Mm-hmm. And so part of it was, I need to learn this for me, but then also seeing so many of my friends crash and burn in the same areas.
Yeah.
Watching homeschool friend after homeschool friend from our co-op say, okay, the line's here. And now that I'm in college, I've crossed it. And then just feeling the shame, blame, and guilt. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, now that I've crossed that line, well, anything goes. Mm-hmm. And just going from extremely conservative to almost no rules at all.
Right.
And doing that in so many areas. And so for me, I wanted to figure out, okay, how does life really, really work? And that was absolutely huge. So that's been, I would say, a huge turning point in my life is just learning how to, 1, follow scripture, but 2, live with truth and grace too.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you said your life was falling apart at that point, were you married or were you dating somebody or where were you exactly?
Yeah. So I got married and first marriage lasted 3 years. Okay. We had 2 kids and really was just a time of a lot of turmoil, questions, confusion, and chaos. Went to the church looking for help and support. And I think a lot of pastors, when it comes to relationships, don't necessarily know what to do when things are falling apart. Because typically I was taking that verse in Malachi, which says God hates divorce. Yeah. And for me, I was already feeling a lot of shame, blame, and guilt, and just felt this heavy weight come upon me. In fact, so much so, I stopped going to church for about a year, just because I'd walk in the door feeling bad, leave feeling worse, and said, I just need a break. Wow. Just some time of grace.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, so that marriage ended then?
That marriage ended after 3 years.
Okay.
And that's when I went back to school, did a lot of studying, really said, I've got to learn how to do relationships well. And about 2 years after that, I met Jenny, met online, dating site. And our first date was at Coronado, which is one of the reasons I love the Bay.
Nice. That would be a great place to have a first date.
Yeah. And I did it strategically because Jenny and I hadn't seen each other yet. Okay. I thought, just from her profile picture, I thought, okay, she looks gorgeous. It seems like somebody I'm going to connect well with. But I've also been on enough blind dates by now to know that not everything always lines up and is as it appears. Yeah. I thought, what I love about this is if this goes the wrong way really quick, we're going to go in, eat pizza, chat. I'm going to say my goodbyes. I'm going to go hang out at the bay, and this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Heck yeah. There you go. No, that's very strategic. That's perfect. So I'm assuming it went well, obviously.
Yeah, that first date was absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell this story a lot, but what impressed me the most about Jenny is after we ate, I asked her to go walk with me along the bay. And this was late February, early March. So absolutely gorgeous sunset. But as soon as the sun went down, it got cold quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hadn't suggested Jenny bring a jacket. We're walking. I see her shiver. Like, I really want to hang out with her, but she looks cold.
Yeah.
You know, so I ask her if she wants to turn around. She says, no, I'm fine. I'm like, yes. We keep walking, look over again. And of course, this time she's got goosebumps up and down her arm. I'm like, okay, she's freezing.
Sure.
So I ask a second time. I'm like, hey, do you want to turn back? Again, very sweet. No, I'm fine. Well, the third time I look over, you know, not only is she shivering with goosebumps running up and down her arms, I'm pretty sure she's starting to turn a little bit blue too. And so I asked this third time, do you want to turn back? And this time with this firm determination, she says, no, I'm fine. And it was that small moment.
Yeah.
Where after the date, I thought back to it and I was like, this girl wanted to be with me more than she wanted to go not be cold.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. That's really awesome. Were you done with your second degree by the time you dated Jen?
Yeah, so I had just graduated. And Jenny was, I think, just a couple weeks away from graduating with her master's in social work.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So we had a lot in common right off the bat.
No doubt. And what school did she go to?
Yeah, she went to San Diego State.
Okay, great. That is, I'm a Boise State person, so that's one of our arch rivals. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. Anyway. Usually we beat them, but San Diego State is one of the few teams that actually gives Boise State a little run for their money a lot of times. So anyway,
love it.
Yeah. So then after you got done with your degree, well, first of all, let's talk about Jenny a little bit more. How long did you guys date before you got married?
Yeah. Well, you know, it actually took me, I think, about 2.5 to 3 weeks before I called her for a second date.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Because I was now kind of in this stage of, I don't want to get serious. I just want to date and learn about people and see what I like and don't like in relationships. And leaving that date with Jenny, it almost terrified me a little bit because there was this thought of, if I go out with her again, I'm going to ask her out again and again, and we're going to get married. And I don't know if so I was playing the tape forward kind of fast.
Yeah. Wow.
But I called 2.5 weeks later. Fortunately, she said yes.
Did she ask you why it took so long?
A couple years later, she did.
Okay.
But yeah, she was patient. I'm grateful for that.
Nice. Okay.
We dated for 6 months before I introduced her to my 2 daughters. Dated for another year after that before I proposed. And then our engagement was almost 1.5 years. So we ended up dating for just under 3 years before we got married.
Wow. Was that a good time length for you? Or do you think maybe it should have been shorter? Or do you think that was just about right for you guys?
You know, I think that was perfect for us. Something I'm learning about blended families is it just takes a lot of time.
Sure.
There's a lot of intensity with blended families. So this was really good for us. And the fact that she got to know my 2 daughters, they got to know her. We started building some regular rituals and routines where we would go to church every Sunday together. Then we'd go out and do something fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
And just those simple things really helped us connect and build that relationship.
Sure. Did you go into counseling then after you got done with your degree?
Yeah, I did. I did something called Wraparound, which was is a support service for families. So I was in there as a therapist. We had a family partner. We had a youth partner. Really good support for families.
Okay.
And also I felt like I was learning a ton myself, which again, I loved. I'm just diving full speed into relationships and learning how to make life work.
That's good. And so what time frame are we talking about right at this moment?
Yeah, so I spent 10 years as a children's pastor.
Okay.
I spent about 10 years as a marriage and family therapist.
Okay. And that was all in, I'm sorry, that was all in San Diego?
Most of it was in San Diego.
Okay.
So I had a very short stint in therapy here in Minnesota. And then the writing started to take off, and that's been quite the adventure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about why you decided to move to Minnesota. What took you to Minnesota?
I love the accent.
It was terrible, but I tried.
Yeah. And then the oh dear and don't you know?
Oh, no. Yeah, sure. You betcha. No, I actually spend a decent amount of time in Minnesota. At least I go to Minnesota at least 2 to 3 times a year because I do business out there. I work in potato industry. I'm from Idaho. Of course, I work in the potato industry, right? But I do quality assurance. And so I go up to Minnesota quite often, and I find them some of the most genuine, kind people I've ever been around. And I absolutely adore their accent. It is fun.
Awesome. Hey, I've got to tell you my story about my first encounter with a Minnesotan.
Sure. Go for it.
All right. So San Diego, we are not as friendly as you would think. There's this perception of laid back, kind of kick back beach attitude. But really, everybody's starting to move pretty quickly now. And so whenever somebody talks to me in San Diego, I'm like, okay, what do you want? Is it asking for money? Are you trying to sell me on your, multi-level marketing plan?
Right.
Is this a holdup? What's going on? So first night in Minnesota, we're exhausted, did a 3 or 4 day drive across the country in the moving truck. I'm like, I'm just going to Redbox. We're going to get a movie and just crash out.
Sure.
And so the guy in front of me gets his disc and then starts talking to me.
Yeah.
Really friendly. I'm like, okay, this is a nice guy, and I'm waiting for the pitch.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what are you trying to sell me? When are you going to ask me for money? I've heard this term Minnesota nice is like a Minnesota nice holdup.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And he keeps talking.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, come on, where is it? Where is it? And then he shakes my hand, says, welcome to Minnesota, smiles, and in my mind was like blown.
It walks off. There was no
Yep.
pitch. That is
No
fantastic. So where did you guys move to?
So we moved to a tiny city called Alexandria.
Okay. And in relation to Minneapolis, where's that at?
About 2 hours. Couldn't tell you what direction. 2 hours away from Canada.
Oh, away from Canada. Okay. So you're kind of up by Duluth area or what?
Yeah, I think I hear Duluth a lot. So I feel like even now I'm still getting my bearings. But
so you're really up there in the cold part of Minnesota. When you say it's cold, it's cold.
Oh, yeah. I've never experienced your face hurts when you walk to the mailbox cold.
Yeah. Well, we do have that here in Idaho. It gets cold. There are times in the middle of the winter where it's like 15, 20 below zero. And you're like, remind me again why I live here. And it's very, very cold. So, but we didn't actually answer the question why you guys ended up deciding to move to Minnesota.
Yeah. So part of it was just San Diego getting more and more crowded. Housing prices continually going up. And I was saying, we really want a place where we can build our family.
Sure.
One thing that I noticed is Jenny's still connected to all of her high school friends. They'll talk via Facebook. Most of my high school friends, they're in Texas, Washington.
Yeah.
A lot of them I met for a year. We became friends, and then they disappeared.
Sure.
There's military town, and life just moves so fast, and everybody's trying to make ends meet. So it was pretty common for my friends to transition in for a year or two and then transition out, either move into a different state or just move in a couple blocks down the road, and all of a sudden you're in a new school district.
Sure. So that's why you said, enough of this rat race. We're going to move somewhere that's maybe a little bit slower pace of life.
Slower pace of life, and then really wanting to launch our kiddos into a place where they're not diving into that race immediately too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just as I notice in San Diego, which I love, but everybody's working 2, 3, 4 jobs, having parents move in with them, moving in with their parents, just scrambling to try to make it work.
Right.
And so looking at that, we're like, we want to launch our kids into something that they can keep up with and not feeling like they're scrambling all the time either.
Yeah. So why Minnesota then? I mean, of all the places you could have picked, you picked Minnesota, and not only Minnesota, but northern Minnesota. Why did you do that?
Yeah. So for us, it's all about family. So this is where Jenny's parents are.
Oh, okay.
And, we're about 30 minutes away from them.
Gotcha.
It's where she grew up, all the way up to 5th grade. And so really it was her coming home and, kiddos and I finding a new home. But it's been really, really good.
Good. And so how long have you been living in Minnesota now?
So we've been living in Minnesota. We're coming up on 3 years.
Oh, okay, great.
July 1st will be our 3-year point.
Nice. And so you said when you got to Minnesota, that's really when the writing career started to take off. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I started writing 6 years ago. Just knew I had a message to share.
Okay.
And a lot of it tied into relationships. My first book was on psychology in the Bible. Because I noticed there was this perception that the two didn't go together. And coming out of seminary, sitting in that first psychology class, remember our dean going over each of the different counseling theories and just having passage after passage of scripture come to mind, realizing like, oh, wow, this is what the Bible teaches.
Yeah.
Like it's not using Bible language,
right?
But same tools, same ideas, same thing that what we think about matters.
Sure.
Same value of relationship and connection, but kind of broken down into steps. And all of a sudden I realized, wait, we don't have to be at odds. When we focus on the tools and strategies that work, because there's some weird things in psychology's past.
Sure.
You study Freud and he'll hypersexualize everything.
Yeah.
He'll do some stuff that's just weird.
Yeah, right.
But what I've noticed is a lot of that has dropped off. You won't find a therapist today who practices therapy just as Freud does.
Right.
Or you'd be hard pressed to find one.
Yeah.
And so to zero in on that and say, man, Freud did some weird stuff, we're going to throw everything out. I just don't see value in this.
Yeah.
And so for me, this was part of getting that message out there of, hey, there's some really cool tools and ideas that we can adopt that can help believers get relationships right from the first time. So a way I think it was looking and saying, man, I want to take that mess and be the crash test dummy.
Yeah.
Stop people from going that same route and to get things right the first time.
Okay. And so was that published by a mainline publisher, or did you self-publish, or what happened there?
Yeah. So I've always gone the self-publishing route.
Okay.
My story is for about 3 years wanted to write a book, and I would start and stop and start and stop. And I think first time started writing and realized my spelling and grammar was just a mess. So opened up Amazon, of course, ordered that book on spelling and grammar, put aside my book and started studying that.
Yeah.
Second time it was, well, I need to figure out how to get traditionally published. And so same thing, jumped on Amazon again. Third time it was this whole idea of, well, I could self-publish, but I need a social media audience. So kid you not, I stopped writing my book to go jump on Facebook and Twitter and say, okay, how many followers can I get?
Really?
Yeah. And then it's funny because I remember right where I was. I'm in our white minivan pulling out of our little apartment parking lot to go get two of our girls from, I think, kindergarten and first grade. And I hear somebody on a podcast say, if you want to be a writer, you've got to write. And that was like my aha moment, which is kind of like an oh duh moment.
Right.
but for me, it was that light bulb went on, and I was like, oh, well, that's why I'm not getting anything done, because getting Twitter followers is not going to get my book finished.
No, it doesn't. It does not. And you can get so sidetracked in those kind of things. I mean, even with my podcast, which really relies on social media to get things done, to get guests. The way my format is, I have to have guests. If I don't have a guest, I don't have a podcast. But I see myself sometimes getting way wrapped up in the social media, and I'm like not actually looking for a guest. I'm sitting there dinking around trying to, like you said, trying to see how many followers I can get on Twitter. And yeah, it doesn't get the job done. It can be a time suck for sure.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And just all of a sudden realizing that, for me, that was huge.
Right. Exactly. So how many books have you written then?
So I've written 21 books, all self-published.
Yeah.
And really allowed me to reach a much broader and bigger audience than I ever imagined.
Oh, good.
It's been absolutely amazing.
So they've been fairly successful then in the self-publishing?
Yeah, at least I think so. It's
okay.
I'll reach anywhere between 25 and 30,000 readers a year.
Oh, wow.
Which, going to seminary, I heard the average church is about 50 people.
Yeah.
And so when I realized, wait, I'm reaching between 25 and 30,000 people a year, that's a lot of lives changed.
Yeah.
A lot of people I get to connect my message to.
Yeah.
Which for me is just a huge, huge honor, especially as a dad who opened up his laptop and started writing at the sticky, messy dining room table.
So do you generally, are most of your books sold digitally, or do you sell a lot of hard copies, or what happens there?
Yeah, so I actually sell more hard copies than digital copies, but I do have both. But love the way self-publishing is set up now with the print on demand, where I don't have to keep, 2,000 books in my garage.
And they're very nice. Depending on who you go through, they're very nice copies of books.
Yeah. And I'm learning more and more that you can get the hardbacks done, you can get the paperbacks done.
Right.
And really whatever quality you want, you've got control. I think that's the piece that I love too, is if something's not working 2 months down the road, I can tweak it.
And you're not having to pay too much percentage out to other people. I mean, you're getting the whole, I know money is maybe not necessarily your focus, but it is nice when you don't have to cut that commissions check with somebody else.
Absolutely.
So how then, you said you were kind of getting sidetracked with the social media and whatnot, and you have continued to go down the self-publishing route. How have you been so successful in marketing your books?
For me, it's been a slow learning and growing process. Amazon ads are amazing. A lot of great tools out there for keywords, for ads, learning how to write a good book description. I think that's what I love about this self-publishing piece. Initially, it's tough because you've got to learn how to do everything yourself. Yeah, right. Once you learn how to do it, it's awesome because you get to do everything yourself. Sure. Instead of having a publicist write your book description for you and making that unchangeable, I get to decide what that's going to look like. That's cool. And if I want to tweak that after 5 or 6 hours, I can go in and tweak that and make adjustments after 5 or 6 hours. Yeah, for sure. So do you continue to counsel or pastor or anything like that? No, we're in an interesting transition time, and we're looking at diving into more coaching. We just got off what was almost our first big marriage retreat. Okay. And then coronavirus hit. Yeah. Day before we said, we've got to pull the plug and reschedule. So that's part of this is podcast tour, trying to do more speaking. Yeah. And really add some other stuff into this. Yeah. Well, and this is the best time to be doing the podcast tour. I mean, it is certified 100% coronavirus free. I mean, you're 2,000 miles away. We don't have to touch each other or even breathe on each other. That's a good thing. And it's a great way to get your name out there. But you say you are trying to tie into more conferences and things like that? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
I got to do a couple online conferences, and those have been a blast.
Oh, good.
So really trying to take something where we've got momentum with the writing and seeing where I can branch it out into other areas. And
Okay.
it's both terrifying and exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you've got a family and mouths to feed. It can be definitely terrifying to try to do that kind of stuff. But I admire the people who are willing to do that, such as yourself. When you say coaching, obviously you were talking about the conferences. Is there any other type of coaching you're doing?
Yeah, so I jumped in with a self-publishing company for 11 months and did writing coaching for them and loved it. Found that I love working with entrepreneurs. That crashed and burned after 11 months, starting this new adventure. So a little bit unexpected.
Yeah.
Our life's taken a couple unexpected turns since moving to Minnesota. Now, Jenny and I became unexpected foster parents. So we got 2 new bonus kids.
Oh, wow.
Which brought us up from 4 girls to 6 girls.
Wow. You're outnumbered.
Yeah. This is our first year where Jenny and I have more years behind us than we do kids.
Oh.
I've been married 7 years with 6 kids. So we're excited.
That's good. Well, that's great. Wow, I'm having a brain cramp all of a sudden of what to say here. I had a thought in my mind, a question to ask, and I've totally lost it. So you're looking forward to the future. You're doing. Are you going to try to maybe still continue to do the writing coaching as well?
I'm taking a break from the writing coaching for the time being. I'll probably dive back into that in the future. Right now, this year, highly focused on relationships, and that's very much the passion. And really where we want to focus first is where a lot of the writing's gone to and been in. Sure. I really want to take a look at doing some relationship coaching and just helping people get healthy and do relationships right the first time.
That's good.
Because I think there's this idea of I've got to be married, and then the 2 of us need to go to counseling before I do this relationship coaching or counseling. For me, I'm realizing before I was married, before I started dating, there were so many relationship pieces that I missed.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to figure out how all of this comes together.
Yeah.
But for me, there was that need to know how to do relationships right the first time. And that's really where my passion is for guys who say, I'm struggling. And what can I work on in me to make this relationship better?
Yeah, I like that approach. I know my oldest son recently got married last year, and of course the pastor expected them to go through some premarital counseling before he was willing to marry them, and I truly appreciate that, and I appreciate any pastor that's willing to do that for young couples, but sometimes I wonder if the focus is misplaced in that type of counseling. And the fact that the counseling generally, and again, it's a pastor, so he's doing what he can, or he or she's doing what he can, but it's just a certain amount of time, right? Maybe they meet 3 or 4 times before they get married, and then that's that, and then welcome to married life. And perhaps there might be something more that would be beneficial in a more coaching type of atmosphere like you're talking about that might continue. Okay, you get the premarital counseling, you get married, and then we're going to continue to coach you as you start facing the difficulties which are bound to come, especially in your first year of marriage, which is always the toughest year to try to figure things out because you're now living with a person all the time that you're trying to figure out all their quirks and all that different kind of stuff that you didn't even think about before you got married, Well,
I think you hit the nail on the head. Is, before marriage, it's tough to find any problem. Like everything's perfect. I think both people have those rose-colored glasses on.
Yes.
At least I did.
Yeah.
And then later on, those start to come off and you're like, oh, wait. My spouse has imperfections just like everybody else. I have imperfections. There were hot buttons I didn't know I had. And all of a sudden, those raw spots are coming up. And so to have something that continues past that honeymoon phase is absolutely huge.
Yeah, that is good. That's good. Well, I'm excited to see what the future holds for you and the all the things that you're pursuing here. Do you have a book that was recently published or a book that's coming out soon or anything like that?
Yeah, so I've got actually both.
Okay.
Recently, I published a book called Joyfully Married, and it's a couples journal.
Okay.
Really built upon this idea of the domino effect. And so there's this idea that comes from physics that says every domino in a chain can knock down a domino that's 1.5 times bigger than itself.
Oh, okay.
So 2-inch domino can knock down a, I think, 3.5-inch domino, which, you keep doing the math. Now, here's the cool part. You get to domino number 30, and we're talking about a domino that's going to take out a skyscraper.
Yeah, right.
And so playing off this idea of exponential growth, I said, what if I could write a book that would give couples just one thing to focus on each day for 30 days? With this whole idea of, man, by the end of those 30 days, there's going to be some exponential growth. And so it's a combination of book that you read with a journal section each day, simple challenge to complete.
Okay.
And couples have been leaving great feedback so far, having a lot of fun. I got to test this out in our Facebook group, Joyfully Married, before publishing the book. Did each day kind of one by one and got some fantastic feedback.
Now, is this book Christian themed or how does that work?
So this is my one book that really doesn't have much of a Christian theme to it. I think there's 2 days where I borrowed some articles that I use from Focus on the Family. And so there might be 1 or 2 verses in there, but really wanted to write a book for everybody.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the one you have coming out, is that coming out soon?
Yeah. So it's going to be a Joyfully Married couples journal.
Gotcha.
And I hope to have this out in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
And really a repackaging of some other books that I have out. It's a conversation starter every single day for 365 days.
Okay.
Really with this idea that couples today are busy. We're caught up in that rat race, or as I heard somebody say, like an overcaffeinated flea bouncing from one activity to the next.
For sure.
And that can all be that enemy of relationships. This is all about just pausing to slow down, to connect, and to have that us time in the midst of all that hustle and bustle.
All right. Gotcha. Good. Well, Jed, it's been a fantastic time talking to you today. I usually like to end my podcast asking a couple of, I like to say, frivolous questions. They're just lighthearted questions. Are you willing to participate?
Absolutely.
Sweet. Okay. All right. So the first question is, who is your favorite superhero?
Ooh, Iron Man by far.
Okay.
Wait. I'm going to scratch that.
But you just said he was by far.
I love Iron Man, and I think I'm moving more that way.
Okay.
I've always told my kids it's Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
And they give me all of the Spider-Man stuff, and I'm like, I can't break their heart.
Gotcha. Understood. Spider-Man is not a bad character anyway. I mean, that his ethic is really cool. I really like what he stands for.
Well, I've always liked Spider-Man, but now with those new Marvel movies, Robert Downey Jr. just does such an awesome job with Iron Man.
He does.
I love the attitude and the personality. And
yeah.
Like that's winning me over.
They're fun. He's got snarkiness to him, and that's, I think, the best part about it. Okay, second question. Who is your favorite band or musician?
Ooh, that's a tough one. All right. So I'm kind of eclectic. I'm loving Linkin Park right now.
Okay.
And Stephen Curtis Chapman.
That is very eclectic. Yes.
And I'm ashamed to admit it, but Eminem's old stuff.
Okay. I don't know if there's shame in that.
And there's part of me that says, man, you shouldn't like that. But I do. I got to go visit. Is it, what is that town in Michigan?
That he's from or what?
Yeah. Detroit.
Yeah, well, yeah, Detroit.
I got to visit Detroit, and all of a sudden I was like, what? And I had no idea.
Yeah.
So when I got the tour, like my mind was blown that there were more houses crumbling and falling apart.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this so makes sense.
Yeah. It's a crazy city. Yeah. I mean, what was it, like 20 years ago, there was almost 2 million people in that town. And then as of like 4 or 5 years ago, there was only like 500,000. I mean, they've lost over 1 million people in that city. And there's like entire blocks with nobody living in it. It's crazy.
I had a friend who took me down. He said, Jed, I want to show you the wealthy side. And there would be mansion after mansion. I'm like, okay, this is looking pretty nice.
Sure.
And then there's just this lineup of 2 or 3 that are deserted and crumbling. Wow. And then we're back. And it was almost mind blowing. I'm feeling these synapses in my brain misfire. I'm like, this is not what happens in the United States.
Right. It's crazy. I hear it's recovering pretty well, though. It's starting to pick up steam, and there's getting some recovery there. So that's good. I have to ask you, you're from San Diego. So there's 2 pretty famous Christian bands that are from San Diego. There's POD and there's Switchfoot. Do you like those bands at all?
I do. Now, I'm not a huge POD fan. I've heard of them. Okay. But Switchfoot, I absolutely love.
All right, good. All right. I would have to question your salvation if you didn't like Switchfoot. No, just kidding.
I hear you. I think everybody likes Switchfoot.
Yeah, they're probably one of the best bands out there. Okay, so 2 more questions. They're both kind of similar, but we'll see how you answer them. First question is, what is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote. I'm going to see if I can remember this. This comes from Ray Tucker.
Okay.
And I don't even know that he's a big name or well-known name. I heard him speak at a conference in San Diego. And he said this one line a number of times throughout his speech, and it just struck a chord with me. It's there's 2 types of leaders, those who consume energy and those who generate energy. Be one who generates energy. And I think what I love about that quote is looking at the writing, the coaching, the speaking, the just kind of all of that. Focus on marriage. Yeah. Really want to be a person who generates that energy, enthusiasm, and excitement. And so for me, I heard that and just instantly fell in love with that quote.
Okay. All right. And then the last question I've got is, it may be the same one you just said, but your favorite piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Ooh, so many, and it's hard to choose just one.
Okay.
One that I've already shared that's been a huge shift for me and really started me on this new adventure was that quote, writer's right, or that advice, writer's right. I'm not sure exactly how it was said, but as soon as that idea clicked, that really started a very cool adventure. So I love that.
That's good. That's good. Well, Jed, it was fantastic having you on the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
It's been fun.
Jed Jerchenko on Everyone Has a Story. Thank you so much, Jed, for calling into the dungeon and spending a little time with us. We truly appreciate it. If you are interested in finding out a little bit more about Jed's books or his speaking or anything like that, you can find him on a couple of different websites. You can find him at Coffee Shop Conversations. There you can find links to his books and purchase some of those. You can also find him at jedjerchenko.com if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about his coaching and helping. He coaches writers, so that's a fantastic thing to do. So look those up. We'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes. And speaking of show notes and all that kind of stuff, you can help this podcast out by doing a couple of different things. You can go to your favorite podcast place, whether you listen to Google or iTunes. It doesn't really matter. The best place to do it is iTunes, but you can do it anywhere you listen to your podcast. And leave a review and a rating. It helps us get found by more and more people. So if you enjoy this show, please feel free to head on over there and give us a rating and tell us exactly what you think. Now, if you don't like us, don't leave a rating. No, that's not true. I like reviews, even honest ones. So please head on over to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and give us a rating and review. And don't forget to check out YouTube. We're going to have this podcast up on YouTube, and every other podcast in the future will be on YouTube as well. You can find us on YouTube at Everyone Has a Story Podcast. Of course, that's the name of it, right? Of course it is. And right now, if you want some merch, I know it's kind of hard time, so you don't have to go to any of these kind of links, but if you want some merch, you can find some Everyone Has a Story merch at threadless.com. We'll leave a link to that in the show notes as well. And don't forget to support the merchants. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Don't forget to support the merchants that we've placed advertisements on this podcast. It helps us keep the bills going, helps us keep the bills paid and the lights on so we can continue to do this podcast. This is Nate Wade. I hope you have had a fantastic Easter weekend, and I hope you have a fantastic week ahead. Here's to speaking with you guys next week. Remember, everyone is unique. Everyone has a story. What's yours? Have a great day, y'all.
Indie Blast Podcast Network.